Welcome to the Brokers Open Podcast. Today on Brokers Open Podcast, we have the pleasure of sitting down with Christie, owner of Fitness Together in Belleair Bluffs. We talk about all things mindset, growing up, the Marine Corps, structure in your business, how to be a better entrepreneur, and so much more. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Palm Media. Palm Media is a boutique digital marketing company built for realtors by realtors. They help agents and teams dominate a target market with specific, tailored strategies. Everything from video, chatbots, landing pages, Facebook ads, database management, and coaching. And oh my gosh, it is way more affordable and simple than you could ever imagine. Call now for 100% free strategy session, whether you have a budget or not. Dr. Ben, my good friend, will make sure that you are heading in the right direction, building your presence online, or flat out crushing your competition. Before you spend a dime on marketing, door knocking, or sending out postcards, call Palm Media, 813-765-7706, 813-765-7706, or click the link in the description below. Manifest your paradise.
Yeah, here we go.
We got a special guest in front of us today. We got my man, Christie. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, excited to be here. Definitely.
Yeah.
So JD's kind of like a local celebrity.
Right.
He's about in every newspaper and magazine that there is no demand.
I
So
believe it.
if you don't know JD, you obviously don't read, and then we can't be friends on top of that.
Well,
So
it's not that he does just one thing. He does like 58 things. We're going to dig into all of that, right?
yeah. All
That's
right.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's part of his fame is part of why I wanted him on here.
Right.
You know, kind of selfishly.
I get it. I get it.
That's all right. Use me, abuse me. That's fine.
But he's
Don't
a good.
you do that for a living with people? By the way?
Yeah.
It all
Check
comes
it out,
around, right?
Yeah. He gets a pleasure
That's
out
right.
of the pain.
He's going to level the field.
Kind of twisted in the head. All right, JD. So where are you from, man?
Originally from Grand Island, Nebraska.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And yes, there is an island in Nebraska.
Holy
Believe it
cow.
or not.
Grand Island, Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of
That's a
got to look this
podcast in
up.
itself.
Middle of the state, middle of nowhere.
That's a podcast in itself.
Oh
I
my
thought it was
gosh.
just corn.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And an island.
So you were born and raised there?
Just for a couple of years of my life, and then moved down to Houston, Texas. After that, I did my elementary years down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But spent all my summers. My grandparents owned a farm up there.
Oh, nice.
Spent all my summers up there, working on the farm.
Nice.
What kind of farm?
Corn, wheat, pretty much like every other farm in Nebraska. But you just kind of learned the importance of hard labor.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
So it was, and then did Miami, lived in Miami for a couple of years as well.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Right. Hurricane, right?
Hurricane Andrew,
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
So you also you went in the Marines, right?
I was. Yep.
Okay, so you graduate high school and
Well, kind of. Yeah. So I graduated high school, and I actually went to college for a couple of years.
okay,
And failed miserably.
right,
It was atrocious.
Right.
So after about 2 years of that, and just kind of came to the conclusion
wasn't for you.
structure. I need structure.
Right.
In college by myself, I wasn't ready for it. So
Right.
What was it about? What was it about the college kind of atmosphere? What made you
The
at that
parties.
point? The parties.
yeah, of course, and just way too social.
Yeah.
Didn't have that that kind of mindset yet.
Yeah.
So did the Marine Corps, and it was literally woke up one morning and was like, I'm going to join the Marines.
Yeah.
And didn't even think about any other branch because
Well,
I
if you
knew.
want structure,
Yeah, that was it.
that's the place to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Did a little bit of research and
Right.
went in one
What
morning.
year was that?
2002.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was right after, of course,
Shit.
poor
Shit is
parents. It was
heating
right
up.
after
Oh, yeah,
9/11.
Yeah,
And your parents were probably thrilled.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they're
you know his parents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How do you know his parents?
All right, we're gonna go back to the Marine Corps story in a second. But I had
You
loosely
don't mind him
known.
bringing this up, right?
No,
That's
it's because I don't know if I've really heard it, so I'm intrigued.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, his
Tell-
parents
tell
are
all this
legendary, but his dad is a legend.
Right, national
And,
salesperson from what I heard, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
He'll chat with you. He'll make a friend with anybody. It doesn't matter.
Nice, love it.
But we went up to the town hall meeting for a, I guess, semi-important kind of structural meeting on the town of Belleair was making a purchase for the Belleair golf course. So long story short, the Bellevue Biltmore Hotel was either going to get torn down or purchased and build these condos. So long story short, they end up saving a part of the hotel and building these things. But almost the entire community comes out. So you got the old hens, and then you got the young people in Belleair, and you got a melting pot in that room. And there it is, standing room. There are a million people in there.
I imagine that's contentious. Yeah.
And so a normal town hall is you got to go through the agenda, old business, new business, that type of thing.
Right.
Well, his dad was slated this day to go up and talk to the town of Belleair. And normally a normal meeting might have, you know, it has the commissioners and it might have 10 residents in there. There were hundreds in there. And he steps up to the microphone. I'll never forget it. I was dying laughing. And he's like, well, I'm up here because I just want to extend my garage out 15 feet and kind of, you know, get towards the road, and I just want to get town of Belleair approval. And he looks at everybody, he goes, I really appreciate everybody showing up for this. And there's like 400 people in there, and they all just erupt, man. I just thought like he kind of played it well, because a lot of people would have gone up there really nervous and like, this is why I'm here. He just had to extend his garage, and then he thanked everybody for being there.
That was freaking awesome.
I talked to him after. I was like, you played that perfectly.
What are they going to say then?
Yeah. Every time I see him since then, that's like I talk about it, all the time. So it's just
that's fantastic.
And he got his garage, by the way.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's beautiful.
What do you tell the whole town now? If you got to tell them no on something else, you better give away the easy thing to start with.
That's what they did. And they're like, yeah, good, you're good. Get out of here now.
They all took a breath and said, next.
Yeah. And then the rest of it was heated. So
he skipped down the aisle, back out, and got his document signed, and now he's got his garage. That's fantastic.
That's a nice garage.
I was cracking up.
Did you know it was his dad at that time? Did you know it was?
I didn't. No, so JD and I hadn't met quite yet then. So that was probably circa 2000, beginning of 2013, I think I'm going to guess.
I got you.
Yep.
I think JD and I connected probably around 2015-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, right around there.
Cool. Yep.
So let's go back to the Marine Corps situation. So college wasn't working out. You hit the party scene pretty good. What college were you attending at that point?
UCF.
Got it.
Yep.
Well,
big
obviously.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's a huge party school, too.
It's a prerequisite. SAT scores and do your party.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I still got a little bit of that in me, I think.
Right.
I can hit a beer funnel.
Well, that was also the Marines got that out of me as well. You know,
I'm sure.
It didn't exactly stop me from partying. It ramped it up quite a bit until afterwards it was like,
I'm good. Structured. But I'm structured.
Parties, I'm good. Yep.
Yeah, you're very
structured.
Good time when I'm supposed to be in class.
Yep.
No, so 2002, obviously, you know, the nation is in gearing up for major wartime.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So was it partly you getting into the Marines like a call to duty, or was it, you know, just because you needed to, you know, kind of get things straightened out?
It was a little bit of both, but I will say it was more selfish reasons than anything.
To start.
Yeah, to start. And then, you know, you go to boot camp and you go through that, and they, you know, by the end of it, you're very much like, no, it's serving your country and doing what you got to do, because you start to see, especially when you go out and you start seeing everything, you're like, we have to be doing this. This is a good thing. So, but yeah, it was 2002, and everything was ramping up. So it was pretty scary.
Right.
You know, boot camp alone is pretty scary, but then when
Parris Island.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, you know, the Marines, they played a trick on us in boot camp, which wasn't cool at the time, but looking back, like, it's
awesome.
I'm sure it was funny as heck, right? But they actually, in the middle of a class one day, made this big scene where a bunch of people came in and they were like, hey, listen, guys, you know, we have you all here, and the reason that we're actually got you all in this auditorium is to tell you that we're cutting boot camp short by 4 weeks or 5 weeks, because we're immediately sending you toward Iraq.
Wow.
And it was like,
oh shit.
People were crying like, holy cow, this is really happening, kind of a thing. And then of course they broke it to us and they were like, now just messing with you.
Yeah, one guy in the back was taking notes.
But you know, the funny thing was too, is it was very much to prove a point, is like, that's what they were doing back in the day. It was like when people joined up, you didn't have 13 weeks plus 6 and or 9 months after that to gear up. No, it was like, here's a gun, let's go. And so that was also the point that they made across too. So it was like, holy cow.
Wow. So how long did you stay stateside before you went over?
Well, my first duty station actually was overseas, but it was Japan.
Right.
So I did a year over there in Okinawa. So I just immediately went over there, and then came back and did Camp Lejeune for a couple of years. And then 2005 is when I was deployed over to Iraq.
And that was when it was really hot.
Hot, absolutely.
Yeah, it was actually, for the Marines, it was our second time. So it was Operation Iraqi Freedom 2.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, oh, well, we didn't quite get the job done, so we got to go back.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, where exactly in Iraq?
It was Al Taqadum, right there by Fallujah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, I was there for Battle of Fallujah. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what was your job in the Marine Corps, especially during Iraq?
I was a logistics guy, so anything that had to do with shipping out people, stuff, trucks, anything like that, airplane, helicopters, boats, anything like that. So we were usually the first ones in because we were the ones that were receiving the equipment, getting everything geared up for the rest of the regiment to come in, take out stuff. So that's what we did. Wow. In between, it was convoy security and quick reaction force stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a gun in their hand at that point, though, man. Everybody's got to be ready to fight.
Yep. So intense.
Yeah, it is. No doubt.
And hot. Really, really hot.
I bet.
140 degrees at one time.
140.
I complain out here.
I know.
And it's going to be 92 today, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Once again, we're reiterated that we're sissies. Spoiled sissies.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dry heat, though. Yeah, it's a dry heat. It's still like blow dryer to the face.
Yeah, right. Like that hot.
Like Vegas.
Sticky, or not sticky, but it's just dry. Like Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of good. I'm glad that we're talking about this because it's Memorial Weekend, and and we want to definitely pay a tribute to Memorial Weekend and what that's all about, and people who lay down the ultimate sacrifice, because that's what this weekend's about.
Absolutely, 100%.
I want people to really reflect on that.
It's not barbecues and beer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's huge. I'm kind of glad that we planned it like this. Coincidentally.
Yeah.
So when did you get out of the Marines?
Late 2006.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And now what was what was that transition like? What was your mind state going, okay, well, I just spent the last 4 years doing this. I mean, I just saw some crazy stuff overseas, and how did that look coming back and trying to normalize your life?
Yeah, so to preface it, I'll just say that, going in, like I said, it was very much for selfish reasons, kind of figuring things out. And I've always, like you said earlier, I've always had kind of that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Where even as a kid, in grade school, when they're asking you, like, your guidance counselors, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? My answer was always, I want to be a CEO, right? Which, looking at it back then, I said CEO, but really what I meant was I want to be a business owner.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand what CEO, the business owner was, right? Yeah. So going through the Marine Corps and stuff like that, you're working your tail off. You're putting in so many hours. You might as well be an entrepreneur, just the amount of work you're putting in and the sleep you're not getting.
Right.
So after about 4 years of that, I was like, if I can take this kind of work ethic that I'm putting into
and apply it,
the military, then if I apply that in the private sector, like, sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
So, they tried really hard to keep me in, because I'll tell you that the one thing I definitely learned about in the Marines is structure is my thing, right? I thrive in structure, and it's just...
That's so me too.
Yeah,
that is so me.
I don't need to recreate the wheel in anything. It's like, you tell me, give me the plan,
let's get it done.
And I will execute, right? To a T. So
nice. That's huge.
Yeah, they tried their hardest to keep me in, which, they got close a couple times, but, finally said no, and got out in 2006. And at that time, too, it was basically, okay, well, what am I going to do getting out of the Marines, right? So one of the jobs that I had in the Marine Corps was actually essentially being a personal trainer. Right, because I was already in really good shape, and I was that guy that when physical fitness tests came around, I aced it every time, and they would use me as the guy, like, 3 times a week. We're working out, at that time it was Sergeant Christie was leading the way, like, follow him, do what he does, right? And even at one time, they had created this program because, believe it or not, when people are coming back from Iraq, they actually come back out of shape.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see that.
Yeah, because you're just stuck on a little base the whole time. You're not out being able to do a lot of the stuff that you can do here stateside. So that was one of the things they created, was like, they called it the BDP program, or BCP, body composition program, and essentially was, Sergeant Christie, just take these guys and get them back into shape.
Yeah, get them going.
Yeah, so I just did that. Of course, back then, I wasn't certified personal trainer. I wasn't anything. So
you just enjoyed it. You
thank
weren't
God
doing
I didn't
it
kill
like,
anyone, right? You know, it was just kind of like, hey,
That's a huge point, though. I mean, you said you were striving for structure, but you've always been into fitness. In order to be fit, in order to be in shape, what you were doing is you were, in college you might not have been doing it in the classroom, but in your life you were falling into that structured regiment of working out and everything. That's a big deal.
It is.
That's an important point. I think you probably just realize you could translate that to other things discipline wise.
Correct. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that's huge.
Yep. With all things lifestyle, not just business, but everything. Faith and family.
Right.
Yep, for sure.
What a blessing that is, though, to kind of like I picture that as people have a really hard time finding their path to success or finding their true gifts in life. Yeah, you struggled a little bit as a young adult, but then, you went into the Marines, started figuring things out, and then you found your passion, and then that passion led to where you are today and where you will be in the future. Yeah. I mean, that's like...
doubling down on his gift.
Yeah.
Hey, I figured out what it is.
Yep.
Let's double down on this. That's huge.
Yep.
So you got back, and then so that transition, let's go back to that. So
the first thing I did getting back was I got certified. Got personal trainer certification and started looking for a job as a personal trainer.
Right.
And crazy story, like the way it all worked out was definitely a blessing. It was just crazy. My mom at the time was working with a personal trainer.
Okay.
Right. And her trainer was moving away to Chicago. Okay. Right, and he was working at a studio. I'll let you guys guess what studio that is in a minute.
Right.
But he was working at the studio, and so they were going to need a new personal trainer to fill in. So, she talked to the owner and was like, "Hey, listen, my son's coming back. He wants to be a personal trainer, and what do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, bring him in. I'll talk to him." Right. And he's like, "What's his name?" And she goes, "JD Christie," and he goes, "JD Christie?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, My dad's last name is Christie, and he's a Marine. And so he just kind of was like, whoa, this is a sign, right?
Yeah,
and he's just like, bring him in, let me talk to him. And so, I talked to him and it all just kind of went from there.
Wow.
I didn't get a job right there right away because I had to wait for the other trainer to move away. So I went and worked at another gym for a couple of months, which was great. I actually am really glad that happened because I got to kind of see, which I call the dark side of personal training, the other,
huge.
The other thing, right, with working in like a larger facility and stuff like that. Some people, I'm sure some trainers love it. Me, absolutely hated it.
Right.
And so,
I just want to pause there.
Some real estate stuff here.
That's exactly. You position that perfectly for us to push that back into real estate. Go ahead, man. I know what you're talking about.
So first of all, independent contractor, right? So you got a choice. You can go wherever. You can work wherever you want to work. Not all gyms are created equal, right? Okay. So just because something is set up to be able to say that it's a gym doesn't mean its culture or philosophical way of looking at things is the same. They can be right next door to each other and be completely different. And you want to find the one that was the right one for you, which is huge. And you said it just a second ago. So the one that you didn't like is a perfect fit for other people. What you did is you rolled up your sleeves and dug in and found the one that you knew that you could succeed and treat your customers the way that you wanted to be treated by partnering along with that company. Absolutely huge point.
It's the same for real estate brokerages, 100%. And sometimes, and I have been there, sometimes it takes being at the wrong spot, being at the wrong gym, being at the wrong brokerage to understand what you want and where you want to go.
Right.
So that's awesome.
I love
that. Was a perfect little
parallel.
Because I hire trainers now, and there's always that feeling that you can see through them that grass is always greener, right? So whether this is their first personal training job, which usually if it is, I actually tell them, hey, go check out some other gyms. Just go to like Interim or something, and just go see, because I want you when you're coming here that this is where you want to be. Right. It sounds really cool right now because I'm the only place that you've seen. Go check it out, and if that's better for you, then
absolutely,
by all means.
All right, so I got to step back on one other thing here. So independent contractors, what you actually did, how you got connected with that gym is the same way that a lot of people succeed in real estate. Your network, which happened to be your mom, was talking you up.
Yeah.
She believed in you. She wanted the right thing for you. She saw the opening. So you were able to get that opportunity to work at that gym because you had a certain reputation. Of course, it's your mom, but because you had a certain reputation with somebody else. That's what we coach people all the time, is make sure you're taking care of the people that you know, your sphere of influence, keeping them up to date on what's going on with your business. If she wouldn't have known that you wanted to be a personal trainer, that conversation would have happened and passed by, and nobody would have known anything about it. But because she was connected with you the way that she was, it allowed that door to be open for you. That happens in real estate all the time, as long as the agent stays connected with the people they're supposed to stay connected with. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And how he generates that clientele and how he generates leads. And what he does on a daily basis is so similar to what you and I do on a daily basis.
I heard a couple minutes of it and I wanted to hug him.
Yeah. I mean, his faith base, I think, is a big part of it. But, I mean, what you'll know about JD the minute that you meet him is everything to JD is character-driven. And if you're not in line with that character-driven role, then probably I'm not going to see you in JD's life.
Right.
You know, or in business with him. And that's kind of what I admire most about him, is that, you know, it's this straight and level path.
Absolutely.
And if you want to go this direction with me, then great.
And if not, lots of luck.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you're in the gym. You went to the dark side, as you put it, and then you came back over, and you know, you're in the gym and you're working and everything. What are those next steps? What do you do? How do you get to the point where all of a sudden you're owning a gym and you're kicking ass and you're the guy to see? You play volleyball too, right?
I did, yeah.
Right. So tell us a little bit about that, right? So,
yeah. So the first 5 years was really all about just learning the ropes of training, right? It was just you gotta grind it, right? You know, it's 5 a.m. for 5 years, right? Every morning, 5 a.m. That was my first client. Some days it was all the way till 7:30 at night. You know, train people in the morning, take a couple hours in the afafternoon, come back at night, train some people. So really grinding it out, and there's really no other way.
Right.
You know, I'm sure even with real estate, there's really no other way. You just gotta, you just gotta grind. You do, and you gotta do the hard work in the beginning, right? And, so that's what, you know, the first 5 years was all about, right? And volleyball just kind of took off somehow. I don't even really know how. I went out one day and was like, hey, I'm going to play some beach volleyball. And
well, you're 6 foot what?
4.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of it.
It's a help. But it's disgusting how good he got so quick.
Oh, really?
Go talk a little bit about the beach volleyball and dig the beach and all that.
Yeah, so you know, I guess I was just kind of looking for a hobby, right? You know, and that's the thing too, is like, always got to have a hobby. You got to have something that on the side that you're doing. You got to have that I call it a competitive generator, right? And so just went out one day, and luckily the day that I went out, there was a group of competitive guys out there playing, and I just kind of watched them for a little bit, and I was like, all right, I'll just go introduce myself. I know how to play a little volleyball, but it's like your backyard barbecue stuff. And I'm just like, hey, you know, can I play? And
where you push your cousin down.
I'll tell you this, the first group I talked to was like, no, you can't. They were just like, no, we can tell you don't know what you're doing. So, you know, down the line. And so I was like, all right, fine. So I moved over to another group, and I was like, hey, can I jump in?
Did you luckily play those guys, by the way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. And we became great friends and sometimes great enemies, you know, in the tournaments. But
nice.
Yeah, so I just started playing with them, really enjoyed it, and so I was like, I think I'll spend a little more time getting better at this. It's a lot of fun, and got invited to a couple of tournaments and played those. My first tournament was out on Clearwater Beach. That's when I really fell in love with it. I went 0-4, got my butt kicked up and down the beach, and then I was like, I'm coming back, you know, and so just kind of picked it up from there, and you know, because I was so into fitness and everything else, and that's really one of the things personally I think beach volleyball did for me, was it gave me a reason for fitness too. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you know,
definitely.
And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know, you need to go to the gym, but if you don't have a why, you know, if your why is, oh, I know I need to get into shape, or like my doctor told me so, like that's just not going to be strong enough.
Fleeting.
You know, you got to have that why, you know, and that goes into the sales and everything of like when people come in and they ask me about training, I'm like, well, why do you want to do this? You know,
and
if
it's 30 pounds because you're going on vacation, so you put the 30 pounds back on.
Sure, yeah, you know, and that's generally what happps with people too, right? Is they just kind of give you that vague answer of like, well, I want to lose 30 pounds, or you know, I want to get in shape, and I'm like, okay, well, why do you want to get in shape? Why do you want to lose 30 pounds? For me, it was because I want to go back and kick those people's butts that kicked mine in you know, that first tournament. So So that really, I found, was why beach volleyball was big for me, is because it just helped me drive. Yeah, and that's why I call it a competitive generator. People tend to call it a competitive outlet. I'm like, no, because I want something that's going to continually make me more competitive.
Competitive generator.
I'm not trying to get rid of my competitive. I want more of it. So.
And that starts to trickle in every piece of your life too.
It does.
In a good way.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, year after year, just kept getting better and more competitive with it, and traveled around, played some big time tournaments, and won a couple of them.
Right.
Had a great time with it, and then that's when I just since then have kind of trickled off a little bit, but for good reasons. Started a family, owned a business, stuff like that. So
it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now your competitive generator is something different. You've now shifted from the beach volleyball into doing the most for your family and doing the most in how high can you go in business. So whenever everybody we talk to, they've all got that outlet where they unplug. Justin's is golf. You play golf?
Yes. Not a whole lot. I have golf clubs that,
he enjoys golf.
Yeah.
Right, I got you. Okay. So I'm like 0 for 12 now. Or, excuse me, 1 for 12.
You got to realize that any guest I bring on is going to be halfway interested in golf. No, but I want to go back to that. So I think it's really, really funny how I wouldn't have had the cojones to do this, but somebody like JD, I know that he's 6'4" and is, physically there, but to walk up to a group of pretty much professional volleyball players at that time and say, "Hey, gang, cool if I drop in with you?"
Yeah.
I
would have been so scared because I know what that looks like, and I know the difference in level of play because I played A volleyball, and there's several divisions. There's B, double B, A, double A, and AAA. And AAA is where JD kind of thrived.
Right.
And the difference between A and AAA, like JD's like, "Oh, you play beach volleyball?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I love it." And he's like, this is like when we first met. I was like, "Oh, who'd you play with and stuff?" He's like, "Oh, Matt Anderson." Oh shit.
Oh, you mean beach volleyball?
Oh, I just mess around, man. I'm like,
I usually pump the balls up.
I remember pulling it back, going, "Oh shit!"
He thinks shovel down.
He thinks I really play. I'm like, "Oh no, this is not good."
That'd be like me with golf.
Yeah,
I play.
Well, you set that expectation, but he was like, "Oh, you play volleyball?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally. I love volleyball."
You bet.
And then, but then he humbly said, what he did. I'm like, "Oh,
damn it!
I look like a freaking idiot."
I did not judge. I swear.
I remember that
a little bit.
I think it was because I was one day to the gym. I was wearing an AVP hat, and then JD's like, "Oh yeah, you play?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, for sure, I do." And then I was like. But anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. Don't be judging me. But all right, so
I'm triple R in beach volleyball, so whatever triple R.
Just for the cocktail,
rest, relaxation, and
I want to start getting back out there though. I mean, those dig the beach tournaments start coming back around. That'd be really fun to do.
Yeah, that's one of my goals. I think this year, I think I'll get out and play another one. I haven't played a tournament in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just went and played last Saturday, and it was the first time in 6 months, and I'm like, man, it needs to come back. They're definitely not at a level or a consistency of what it was before, but, just like earlier you said, it's just like riding a bike. I got out there, and it was the only thing was the heat.
Yeah.
So.
That's an interesting point, So as you're going through your life cycle here, you're a competitive generator, which I love that phrase, by the way. You're a competitive generator.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll be stealing the shit out of that phrase. So anyway, your competitive generator was beach volleyball, and then you started taking that energy and putting it into family and business and all that kind of stuff. But now you have that desire to go back to that. Mm-hmm. So what's actually happened is that force that you're getting, that competitive generating force, has expanded because you focused on it.
Yep.
You've got more of it. So now you can apply it to your business, you can apply it to your family, you can still apply it to beach volleyball, and that's what's happening. You've got so much of it now because you grew it, because you're using it every day. Now you want to be able to apply it to something else. It's freaking
for
huge.
Sure.
That's how people perform at so many things at so many high levels, is because they keep focusing on it. It keeps expanding. They keep getting better at it, and all of a sudden they have more energy to do that right thing.
Yeah,
that's huge.
And that I think that it also transitions back into his profession, because when people come into his gym looking for fitness, looking for that next goal, looking for their why, what JD does outside of the gym and inside the gym reinforces him being the figure that he should be. Right. He needs to be that top-down approach where he is the answer to your questions, and professional beach volleyball is going to help that. It's not like,
absolutely,
oh yeah, JD's a great trainer, but man, does he really drink on the weekends?
Right.
That doesn't fit.
Right.
So that kind of it fits inside of his nucleus pretty good.
Yeah, you got to live the gimmick.
That's right.
Yeah, that's really what it is, and especially with personal training.
Yeah.
But I mean, that goes with, I'm sure, absolutely everything. Financial services, right? I'm sure with you guys, as well.
It does.
You got to show that you've made the right decisions in ultimately the field that you're working in.
I taught karate for a long time in the town that I lived in. I don't know that I ever went out and had a drink in the town that I lived in the whole time I taught karate, which was for 10 or 12 years.
Sure.
Because if I smoked a cigarette, which I don't, but if I smoked a cigarette, then I was a smoker. If I drank, then I was a drinker. It doesn't matter whether I had 1 or 500. That's how people look at you.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to stand up there and talk to their kids about being respectful and being honest and being disciplined and all that kind of stuff, you have to be that same kind of person. So needless to say, I had to give that shit up so I could get into real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Now
so you can grab a cocktail.
Drink. It's almost like you have to have a bar in your car.
Yeah,
whenever you go in real estate.
It's a little true. It is, in real estate, it's like that entertaining factor. It's like
your liver has to get a license too.
Clients and everyone expect you to, okay, let's go get a glass of wine now. And I'm like, my steadfast thing is I don't drink during the week. On Friday and Saturday I'm cool with going out and getting a couple drinks or whatever. But during the week I'm like, no. And people, let's take your client out, whatever, let's go grab a drink. I'm like, I struggle with that because I want to wake up early. I want to be productive the next day. I'm like, that goes back to that structured thing.
People think I'm antisocial, but that's what they want to do. They want to go, and I've got other things. Whenever I finally unplug, I got other things I got to get done. It's not just real estate,
Yeah.
So, all right. So beach volleyball. So you're kicking ass in beach volleyball.
Yep.
So you're doing well in a personal training, and you told me the story, man.
This is good.
You touched on it. So you find out. So tell us how you ended up with a gym. How did that happen?
Yeah, so it's and it's just like almost everything else in my life. It's always been, the big decisions have always been very quick. Like, I'm going to do this, and just like with the Marines, it was one morning, like, all right, let's go.
Here we go.
And so this is 2012. I don't know if obviously you guys remember 2008. The collapse, right? So
absolutely.
Here we are 4 years later. And, with the personal training, the fitness industry, the economy hasn't really made a comeback. Right. So, I mean, we were just skinny for a lot of years. And so, after 4 years later, the current owner of the gym that I was training at, which was Fitness Together, he just essentially just kind of threw in the towel. It was just, he moved away, was going to get another job. And so, he was working some deals to try to shift things over and stuff, and they all kind of collapsed just right then and there. And man, I'll tell you, I still remember it. It's going to be one of those things you'll remember for the rest of your life. Yeah. Kind of up there with the day we had my kids, right? And it was a Saturday morning, which I told you literally will be 7 years ago tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was Memorial Day
weekend.
weekend.
To the podcast, by the way. That's how we make miracles happen.
Yeah, so, I was out playing beach volleyball one day, and on a Saturday morning, it was gorgeous, just like it is today.
Yeah.
And super pumped. I had a great session and was playing, and I was walking up the garage stairs, and I get a text message, and it's like, hey, JD, sorry to tell you this, but as of Monday, the studio shut down, and we're closing up.
Yeah.
And
via text.
And so I was like, it's just really like, oh crap, and just bought a house, just got married, everything was feeling like on the up and up, and then all of a sudden just wham right in the balls, and so totally freaking out. I'm just out of, I did a year in Iraq, and I got to tell you, I don't know if I've ever been more scared at that moment than ever. Because it was like, how am I going to do this? And do I have to go get a job now? Like, do it like, you know, so I made some phone calls, you know, just immediately started calling people, called, you know, corporate was the franchise. Right. And I was like, listen, like, what's the situation? Where are we at? Like, what's it going to, you know, what's going on?
Right.
And they were like, you know, if we shut the studio down and after 14 days or whatever, if it's not reopened by then yeah, it's out, it's gone. And right. It's like, okay, well, what's got to happen to reopen it? And they're like, somebody's got to take it over. I said, okay, well, what does that mean?
Right. Tell me.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? And they were like, well, you know, they gave me the list of things that had to happen. And I was like, I could probably do this. And so went on to call a bunch of called a lot of the clients.
Yeah.
Family members, talked to my wife, and I was like, hey, listen, like, what do you think? You know, and everybody was very supportive of it. You know, and it's like, hey, listen, you've been the face of the studio anyway, so it only makes sense.
It's natural transition.
Yeah, 1 week later, I owned the studio, owned it, and
just like that.
And but I mean, it wasn't like I owned a thriving business. There was a lot of work that had to go and happen in order to make it work. And
I want to talk about that, like, dark, let's call it a week, you know, a real gut check, because you know, you being a faith-based guy, you know, I think that, you know, God or however, you know, the viewers want to look at this, you know, will challenge us in ways that are not going the way that we plan in our head.
But it's exactly what we asked for.
And it shaped you.
Yes. If he's not challenging you, he's not growing you.
Right.
Yeah. Taking you out of that comfort zone. How many times have we talked about comfort zone?
Yeah.
I love that, because I think that when people look on the outside in to successful people or happy people in general, they look and say, oh, well, JD's got it easy. You know, JD was made for this. JD, you know, whatever, they're going to make up excuses in their head. But you don't see the inside, and you don't see the trials and tribulations. You don't see how hard JD works every day and what he's gone through to be here. And, you know, the path to success, we'll say this on every podcast, is like this.
Absolutely.
You know, you're going up, but it doesn't feel like you're going up. And all of a sudden it happens.
So there's so much of a difference between wanting to be successful and being committed to being successful. There's a huge difference. Wanting to be successful means you look at somebody else and you say, my gosh, I'd love to own a gym and everything. And, you know, I hope that works out. And if the right situation happens, then I get to have a gym. That's what wanting is. Or looking at from a real estate perspective, you know, that agent's been in the business 20 years. I want customers calling me saying, come list my house, instead of me having to compete to go get my first listing.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That's right. And I did the same thing that they did. I sent that postcard out, or I made that phone call instead of being committed to it.
Yeah. Yep.
So you made that decision. So, you know, it's funny, you keep bringing this up. You know, you have your list. You have the things that you know need to happen, and you are disciplined about getting them done. So they gave you a list. Hey, this is what has to happen in order to get that. You know, that would have stopped a lot of people. I'm going to say 90% of people, that they would have talked to the franchise, they would have made that phone call, they would have saw that list, and there was one thing on that list that would have been glaring to them that they couldn't get done. And instead, you just looked at it like you have all the other things, like how you work out and playing beach volleyball and all that. I'm just going to check this shit off.
Yeah,
and then we'll see where that goes. It wasn't that any of those were going to be an obstacle for you. That's huge. Kudos, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like looking at yourself right then. It's like, well, you know, I'm going to take this leap of faith, but it can't get much worse than this feeling that I'm having right now. So if I fail, I'm going out in flames, running.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Going down swinging. That's for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So starting it up. I know that's not, you know, you starting it up is not what the gym looks like right now.
Right.
So talk to me about the entrepreneurship path of fitness together.
Yeah,
because you love sales and marketing too, right? I mean,
I do now. I didn't then. I mean, we can talk about that. Like, that was very much a learned skill set.
Not then.
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, I will definitely say this, that none of that would have happened had I not been married to who I am now. My wife, you know, she made some serious sacrifices to help me out with that one. So, you know, but that first year, it was essentially just working for free.
Yeah.
You know, pro bono for a year, 80, 100 hours a week, just
living
grinding it and training and doing everything, you know, and you know, you just definitely had to have that faith in my clientele that I was doing the right thing for them.
Absolutely.
And so therefore it was going to come back to me, and it did. Yeah. And luckily, you know, and then I was able to eventually start taking a paycheck. But first, I actually brought in a trainer or two to help with the workload and that stuff. And then just kind of been growing up since then. Now I have 3 trainers that work for me, and that's.
Was that difficult? So that growth pattern. So I like to liken it to like when we have an agent who's growing a business, and all of a sudden, their time and their leverage of things that they need to do starts to hint that they need to bring somebody onto their team, whether it be an assistant or a buyer's agent or something like that. Was that? I know that was hard for me back in the day. But was that hard for you to understand? Okay, I'm still not making a paycheck, but I need to bring somebody in because I need help.
Right.
Was that tough? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, so I'll say this. I think that first and foremost, that really shouldn't be a priority, and I didn't make it a priority in the beginning because like you said, growth happens like this, and anytime something down spirals, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. It's always your fault, and it was my fault when stupid decisions and thinking you get. What I call that shiny object syndrome, where you're like, some marketer comes to you and you're like, I'm going to get you all these leads, and you're like, yes, here's my money, and oh no, right? So, go through those kinds of things and you learn, and then, so it was great to go through that for about 6 to 8 months, and then once I kind of learned about those things and had a little bit more of a better footing with the business, then bringing on that person really wasn't that difficult. I wouldn't say. Yeah. But it just brings on its own challenges, other challenges and problems that once again you're going to make some stupid decisions. Right. I've made some bad hires, and we all have. I've made some hires out. Yeah. So, I don't kick myself too much for doing stuff like that. So.
Yeah, but those bad hires help you not make a worse hire later. I mean, that's
you would hope, right? Yeah. Sometimes some lessons are learned more than once.
Okay, so there's a story behind that. We'll talk about that off camera.
It's funny how though, like when you started a business and you're an entrepreneur, and then you get thrusted into a leadership role. Yep. So when you're an entrepreneur, it's not necessarily a leadership role, but then you start hiring employees and you have people looking after you and whatever. Then that leadership role changes, and then that's when the dynamic really starts to grow. Yeah. I know that for me was a big change, so I can imagine that was a big growth moment for you going, okay, JD, step up to the plate, own it, let's go.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, coming from the Marine Corps, I was a sergeant in the Marines, and so a little bit used to that leadership role, but in the private sector, it's a little bit different. I can't exactly yell at my employees and be like, do it now, let's go. I mean, you can, but it doesn't end well usually. So, so it's a little bit of a different leadership style, I will say. Yeah. But yeah,
a little more finesse.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's awesome. All right, so Fitness Together. So from 2012 to 2019, I know that you've taken it quite a long way. JD writes like I don't want to call it a blog. You do like an editorial in the magazine. Mm-hmm. Is that monthly?
Yes.
Okay, so talk to me about that.
Yeah. How do people get it? First of all, what do they?
Yeah, so it's the one that I write for is Belleair Living, right, which is a publication. So they go all through Belleair. Okay, and then just I started doing with Harbor Bluffs Living as well. Oh, cool. Which is essentially the same publication. It's just they cater to that neighborhood. So, which is it's my people, Belleair, the beaches, all that stuff. Those are all where my clients come from and stuff like that. So it only makes sense to continually provide content for them. Right. And I've been doing it for quite a while. Yeah. And it's nice. It's pretty easy. I've been, sometimes you have those celebrity moments. You get stopped in Publix and they're like, "Hey, I've been reading your article." I'm like, "Cool, people read it. All right."
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's that stickiness too. So I mean, that goes into that work and and what he wants to do every day.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I've always liked that bit of it. Yeah. All right, so I want to transition this talk a little bit and kind of get into, we're obviously talked about your success path and everything that you're doing now. What is your goal? What do you want to build this brand into? What does JD look like over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years? What do you want to do? Yeah,
so 10 years, we're going to own Tampa when it comes to personal training. So, we're going to be... when people in Tampa, Pinellas, Clearwater, when they talk about personal training, fitness together is going to come up in that conversation.
Nice.
So, I've got a team of trainers now, and we have conversations all the time. And that ultimate goal is that I'm going to help them become owners.
Like-minded people.
Yeah, and that's what they want. They don't want to be
surrounding themselves with it.
5 a.m. personal trainers all their lives. Of course, they're going to do it now because they need to learn the ropes, just like I did. And then we're going to develop into a much larger market, and we're going to, open other studios. I'll open up another one of mine.
Yeah.
And then I'll help them open up one, and ultimately we'll be a nice big co-op right through Tampa. So 3 or 4 studios, not all mine, but it's nice when you have people that like the whole area that you all are just sharing that exposure.
Absolutely,
it plays huge.
Rising tide.
Oh,
absolutely.
I completely agree.
Yep.
So how do you so tell me about this, because there's the whole independent contractor thing, right? So how do you generate business? How are these guys getting new clients that come into them so that they can work with them? How do they do that?
Well, so they're not doing any of it. I am.
Okay. So how do you do it for them?
Yeah. So it's definitely a lot of advertising, whether it's digital, print, networking, all that kind of stuff, and before really any of that marketing and sales happens, you definitely got to have that team in place, because you got to understand it's definitely a process, right?
Yeah,
and
don't drive people in if you can't deliver what you promised in the ad.
Yeah, totally. And so getting them all on the same page was priority. And so, you can go into my studio, talk to all 3 of them, and you're going to get the same message from all 3 of them. Yeah, so that was...
Congratulations on that. That's a big deal.
Yeah, goal number 1, right? And so now, I'm the marketer, I'm the closer, right? And to kind of what we were talking about earlier, that was not who I was 7 years ago,
in 2012.
I was definitely that guy of like, I'm not really into sales. If I just own the gym and I do really cool programs, people just come, and we talk about those mistakes, right? That was a huge mistake to think I got a certification, people, trust me, and it just doesn't work that way. So it was very much a skill learned.
Absolutely.
And just so.
And you can't stop learning.
Nope.
So that's a huge thing. Yeah, I mean, he literally just said, I got the certification, I got my license, and now people are they know and trust me, so they're going to come to me for business. I can't tell you how many real estate agents think that same exact thing, that just because they got the license, people are just going to start banging on their door and say, list my house for sale, and I sure hope you do a great job. Good luck.
Yeah, even if your friends and family tell you they'll use it,
that's right.
They don't trust it. They're not going to, you gotta, totally.
That's every new realtor out there. We're talking 7 years later that JD's built this. So JD has built a business much like you should build your real estate business, but understand that anything worth having and anything worth having for the future is not going to happen overnight.
Right. And you have to keep working on it. I gotta throw this out there, and I'm going to I'll try to keep it really short. So my wife was in Starbucks working yesterday, and there was a couple of people that were real estate agents sitting around her in a fevered panic about getting something ridiculously simple done. And another person in there was a brand new agent. And the brand new agent said, hey, I noticed that you're in real estate, and started asking them some questions about how they should run their business. This brand new agent getting started. And Tammy said it was all she could do to not laugh at the advice they were giving. And the person was sitting there with bated breath, writing there, taking notes, all that kind of stuff. And the advice that they were giving, if the person would have just watched the 10 minutes before that of how they couldn't get the basics done of what they needed to get done, that person should have known not to take the advice. And the reality is, she said later in the conversation, the people explained their pattern of education, that they kind of knew it already.
Oh, yeah.
They've been doing this a long time, and they knew it, which is the exact opposite of what you're saying, which is the exact opposite of what we say all the time. You don't know it. It's not over. This is real estate, having a license, having your certification, being an entrepreneur. It is a trip. It is a journey. It is not a destination. You're not done.
Yep.
That's the problem, I think, with real estate, and I'm going to loop personal training into it, is that the barriers to entry.
Yep.
Anybody that can have their real estate license, and quite honestly, I wouldn't say anybody. I mean, there's a little bit higher barrier because there's got to be a fitness level there a little bit, but I mean, for the most part, anybody can get their personal training stuff,
right?
Yep.
And that really creates a flooded market with the barriers to entry being so low. But the people who are good at what they do
look like they're good. You can't look at a real estate agent and tell whether they're good or not.
Right.
You can look at a fitness trainer and tell whether they're worth it or not. At least
yes and no. Right, so that's
that's the barrier he's talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, there's and we're definitely in the age of information, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And we're also in the age of misinformation.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's
a good way to put that.
It's just, I mean, you look out there on the internet, on social media. I mean, especially in the fitness industry, this social media stuff is outrageous.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so it only makes it's a nice thing though, because it allows guys like myself or anybody who really kind of takes on the role of a marketer or a closer or anything like that to really separate themselves, because people aren't stupid.
Yeah.
When they look on their social media and they see somebody's like, oh, they're doing all these like cool exercises, or they're like, oh, buy my 6-week program, $10, and then they come and speak with somebody who's been doing that for a while, like I have, they can sense that difference, right? But it takes a conversation.
Yeah.
And it takes the right conversation too, right?
You got to get in front of them.
Yeah. And for me, like, that was definitely a learned thing. There was, in the beginning for me, there was the conversations that I was having which I'm sure everybody can attest to, like, when you first start off in sales, you're going to suck.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, and it always starts like, I'm sure real estate agents do the same thing, where they like walk somebody into a house and they're like, this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Here's the kitchen.
Right?
It's a kitchen.
It was built in 1960, right? And they just are going through like the list of listing things off, and they're like, yeah, this is really cool. This is neat. And they're not having that engagement with, their clients or their prospective clients, and really trying to figure out, well, why do you want a 3-bedroom? Right, like we go right back to the why. What's the why? And the same thing with personal training, right?
So true.
Don't give me the superficial stuff. Tell me what your vision is, what your dream is, and so that was how it started for me, right? And I'm just like listing off like, we're a personal training studio. We have 2 rooms, and they're both fully equipped, everything you could need,
right?
And we do evaluations every 6 weeks, and it was just people just kind of looking at me like just blank, right? Like, ooh, cool. Yeah, that's what the last guy said too, right? And
they read me the same list.
Yeah. So when we started having those conversations of like, tell me about your kids, right? Are you married, right? What have you done in the past that
if we wouldn't have said personal trainer, we would be sitting here with a real estate agent. I'm telling you.
Somebody we had this course, and it's a book and all this stuff. It's called Ninja. And it sounds cheesy. Like, whenever I hear Ninja, I'm like, I cringe at that name. But they do a phenomenal job. And it's all based on asking the customer the right thing and making sure that you're attaching to their why, attaching to who they are as people and stuff. So that's
you're speaking to them about the solution for the actual problem, not speaking to them about the solution you think would help them because you haven't listened well enough to hear the problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So many trainers and realtors get in their own way because of that stuff.
Yeah, it's the concept of gap selling, right? Or like you have where's your client right now and where do they want to be? Your value is right there in between, right? And that's what you should be focusing on, not the end result, but basically the process of getting there.
Absolutely.
And
so that's huge. Again, there's so many parallels in this. I mean, there's so much is running through my head. Everything that you're saying about how this can help the people that are sitting there if they just forget the personal trainer part and listen to everything else in between. It would exponentially blow up their business. You're talking about focusing on your network, actually listening and delivering on why they want to be in front of you. Why are they selling their house? Why are they going to the personal trainer? Making sure that you're putting the customer first. You went a year without getting a paycheck. Right?
Yep.
That is absolutely, those customers that did that during that year, this is probably the first most of them are hearing that you went for a year without a paycheck. So if they were there in 2012 to 2013, they probably didn't realize, because that's not how they look at it. They look at it like, what level of service am I getting? I'm paying. That means you're earning a living. And that's not the reality of it. We both own real estate companies. I can remember people walking up to real estate companies and from 07 till 2012, 2013, going to open the door, and the door is locked. Brokers nowhere to be found.
Right.
I mean, I can remember mortgage companies doing that. I can remember real estate companies doing that.
Yep.
I can remember escrow accounts being depleted and people moving away. I mean, all kinds of stuff happened during that time because it was just tough and people were ill prepared. Just because you're a great electrician doesn't mean you can run the electric company.
Right.
And so, as we get into a better market, that's what happens. So that's what I was about to ask you now is, so as you see that the economy is growing and everything, so that means all of a sudden everybody's getting back in the fitness business, right? Everybody's starting to open their own gyms and everybody's their own. Okay,
little fitness gimmicks and the shakes and
every
all that.
week, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that. How do you combat the bullshit part of that? How do you deal with the fake part of that? What do you do?
Well, you don't combat it. You just do what you do. You don't pay attention to them. You just keep doing what you do and let them do what they do, and that's really about it. Like I mean, that's just energy that you don't need to be spending. You know, worrying about what somebody else is doing. So, I know they're there,
right?
But I'm really not.
Yeah, you're wasting time by thinking about them rather than doing what you're good at.
Yeah. So I just make sure that I am doing what I'm doing the best of my ability, and may the best man win.
That's right.
That's what he drives home every day there, I think, is service first and then culture. I mean, when you walk into that gym, you feel that service, you feel that culture. I mean, he's created something dynamic there, and it's not by happenstance.
He's not a price competitor.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's a service competitor. I love it.
Well, we got to start wrapping up or else we're going to run out of film. So I have 2 quick questions for you.
Film? There's film? What?
All right, 3 things that you're grateful for.
God, for one. My wife and kids, definitely the other.
Nailed it.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'd have to say just definitely my family, friends and family after that. I mean, just the people. It's all people.
Mm-hmm. The relationships, yeah. That's huge.
Yep.
So what's your favorite book? You do a lot of reading, a little bit of reading. What do you do? Do you listen to books?
Yeah, right now I am reading. Just got done with Keenan's gap selling, so I'm really big on that right now.
Gotcha.
But favorite book, I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, that's great. Gary V.
So anything that guy puts out, I'm all over it. And I just recently got my wife into it too. So we geek out on Gary Vaynerchuk a lot. So he's awesome. He's a big culture guy too. So I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, what? Let's look back. Let's say we're way down the road. What do you want your legacy to be? Like, when you're gone, how are people talking about JD Christie?
He worked until he died.
Yeah.
Never going to stop. Whatever that looks like, definitely never going to let off.
Right. Foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah. Definitely family guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely family guy.
Perfect.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people get in touch with you? You're on Facebook and...
On Facebook. I do a little bit of Instagram. But, definitely our website, fitnesstogether.com/Belleair Bluffs is the best way. Phone number, 727-586-7680.
Good.
Boom. And we'll put a link on the Facebook and on YouTube when we put the podcast up. Make sure people can find you. He's in the West Bay Plaza right now. He's right next to kind of Bonefish and
I got you.
Yep.
The ice cream shop
right next to Kawa Coffee.
Kawa Coffee.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best. All right, JD. Well, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you taking the time, especially on Memorial Day weekend where everyone's kind of, hitting neutral right now and you're hitting the gas pedal. So I appreciate it.
As always.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks.
Boom.